Claude McKay's If We Must Die is one of the most powerful and enduring poems of the Harlem Renaissance and of African American literature as a whole. First published in 1919 in The Liberator, the poem emerged in the wake of the Red Summer, a period of intense racial violence in the United States. In response to this brutality, McKay crafted a militant yet dignified sonnet that calls for resistance, courage, and honor in the face of oppression and death. Although it never explicitly names race, McKay's sonnet is widely read as a declaration of defiance from Black Americans who refused to be passive victims of racial terror. It has since been invoked as a universal call to fight against injustice, reclaim dignity, and confront persecution with unity and valor. The speaker opens by acknowledging the grim possibility of death but insists that if death is inevitable, it must be faced with dignity. He rejects the idea of dying, like hogs, slaughtered in shame and silence. Instead, he advocates for a noble death, fighting courageously and making even their enemies recognize their valor. As the poem progresses, it becomes a rousing call to arms. The speaker addresses his kinsmen, urging them to unite and resist the common enemy, even if outnumbered. Though they may be doomed to die, they must die honorably, facing their killers bravely and striking back. The final couplet delivers a strong message of defiant resistance. Though cornered and pressed to the wall, they will fight back to the end. Form and structure. If We Must Die is a Shakespearean, English, sonnet, consisting of 14 lines in iambic pentameter with a rhyme scheme of A B A B C D C D E F E F G G. This traditional and prestigious poetic form adds weight and authority to McKay's revolutionary message. The sonnet's structure allows McKay to build tension gradually. The octave, first 8 lines, presents the problem, unjust death and oppression, and the necessity of dying nobly. The sestet, final 6 lines, issues a call to action and outlines a response, courage, unity, and resistance. The final rhyming couplet serves as a climactic declaration of defiant heroism. McKay's use of a sonnet, a form typically associated with love and refinement, for a political and revolutionary subject is deliberate. It elevates the message and gives dignity to the speaker's cause. Themes. 1. Dignity in death. The central theme of the poem is dignity. McKay insists that if death is unavoidable, it should be faced with honor and purpose, not passivity or humiliation. The line, "If we must die, oh let us nobly die," encapsulates this message. Dignity becomes an act of resistance. By choosing how to face death, the oppressed assert their humanity. 2. Resistance and defiance. McKay's speaker refuses to be a victim. Instead of succumbing quietly to oppression, he encourages a response rooted in collective resistance. Even when far outnumbered, the oppressed should deal one death blow in return. This spirit of active defiance runs throughout the poem and makes it a lasting rallying cry for those facing injustice. 3. Unity and solidarity. The speaker appeals to his kinsmen, creating a sense of brotherhood among the oppressed. This unity is critical. Only together can they meet the common foe. The poem transforms private fear into collective courage. Solidarity becomes both a strategy for survival and a means of asserting identity. 4. Injustice and oppression. While the poem doesn't directly reference race or specific events, it alludes to systemic oppression through metaphors and imagery. Words like hunted, penned, mock, and monsters evoke violence, dehumanization, and persecution. The poem acknowledges the brutal reality faced by marginalized groups, particularly African Americans during McKay's time. 5. Heroism and legacy. Even in death, McKay's speaker seeks to create a legacy. He imagines a scenario in which even their enemies are constrained to honor as though dead. The poem suggests that true heroism lies not in survival but in how one chooses to live and die, with purpose and integrity. Imagery and language. McKay employs vivid and loaded imagery to create emotional intensity. Die like hogs. Pigs are seen as dirty, helpless, and slaughtered without thought. This simile evokes dehumanization and powerlessness, representing how the oppressed are treated. Mad and hungry dogs. A metaphor for violent oppressors, portraying them as wild, irrational, and threatening. Precious blood. Emphasizes the value of the lives being lost and the importance of not letting that sacrifice be meaningless. Monsters we defy. Reinforces the moral contrast between the oppressed, who are noble, and the oppressors, who are monstrous. Open grave, and pressed to the wall, depict inevitable death and entrapment but underscore the resolve to die fighting. McKay's diction is concise, elevated, and emotionally charged, combining classical poise with revolutionary urgency. Historical context. If We Must Die was written in response to the racial violence that erupted during the Red Summer of 1919. African Americans faced lynchings, race riots, and police brutality in cities across the U.S. McKay, a Jamaican immigrant and key figure in the Harlem Renaissance, channeled his anger, grief, and pride into this poem. Despite its specific roots in Black resistance, the poem's universal tone and absence of racial markers made it widely applicable. It was quoted by Winston Churchill during World War II and has inspired countless resistance movements around the world. Tone and voice. The tone of the poem is resolute, urgent, and impassioned. There's no self-pity, only resolve. The speaker does not plead for sympathy, instead, he commands respect through courage and action. The voice is collective and inclusive. By addressing kinsmen and using we, McKay builds solidarity. It is not an individual lament but a communal battle cry. This inclusive voice is key to the poem's power. Legacy and influence. If We Must Die is one of the most widely anthologized and quoted poems of the 20th century. It established McKay as a major literary figure and contributed to the emerging Black consciousness of the Harlem Renaissance. Its universal message of resistance, dignity, and solidarity has made it relevant far beyond its historical moment. The poem also exemplifies how African American writers appropriated traditional literary forms, like the Shakespearean sonnet, to express radical and political ideas. McKay's synthesis of classical form and revolutionary content set a precedent for future generations of poets. Conclusion. Claude McKay's If We Must Die is a masterful blend of literary elegance and militant urgency. Through the traditional sonnet form, McKay elevates a call for resistance into a timeless anthem of defiance and honor. He speaks not only to African Americans in the 20th century but to all who face oppression and injustice. The poem's message is clear. Even in the face of overwhelming odds, dignity is not negotiable, and death without resistance is unacceptable. McKay transforms poetry into a weapon, an instrument of moral courage and political power. More than a literary work, If We Must Die remains a bold, unforgettable stand for justice.